So if I'm if say President elect Donald Trump were watching this program now, and the entirety of Congress were watching, what would you tell them? Hey, you guys, you need to do this to help out the New Orleans, Greater New Orleans region.
Well, I would say that if we're going to be talking about $1 trillion of infrastructure investment as a way of jumpstarting the economy and bringing jobs back and encouraging wage growth, then there is no more important infrastructure project than rebuilding the Gulf Coast. The Gulf Coast provides the vast majority of the energy to the country, the vast majority of the seafood to the country. The Mississippi connects to 32 states and 2 or 3 provinces in Canada. We're home to some of the most critical military bases in the country. And so the multiplier effect that we talked about before of a dollar spent to restore our wetlands, to stabilize our coast, to dredge the Mississippi, and to make sure that living and working and navigating in southern Louisiana remains plausible is as high as any infrastructure project you're going to see in the country. We quite simply connect economically, politically, and practically in more ways than almost any other project. So what I would say to the president, what I would say to Congress is consider doubling down on the reinvestment on stabilizing the coast of Louisiana and the Gulf, because the benefit economically, politically, socially, and let's also say, Stephen, culturally, to the United States can't be surpassed.
The president-elect is talking about, say, nullifying some of these trade deals. And I'm just wondering, is that going to, I read yesterday, somebody on Facebook said that might not actually help Louisiana. I'm just, because of the position we have in terms of trade. I'm just wondering, do you have an opinion?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question, not even a hot seat question. Look, there's some things that the president's talking about which are potentially very good news for Louisiana. For example, the radically upgraded approach towards the energy industry. No doubt that that is good news for us and for our energy companies. But in terms of trade, it's much more of a mixed message. In terms of our exports, partners like China are critically important to Louisiana. The port has been operating at record levels. We export all of our agriculture. We import commodities like rubber, steel, and coffee. And so we are very concerned, that we are very worried that if we were to get into a trade war, for example, that would impact the trade that goes through Louisiana. We recognize that there are challenges with globalization, and that agreements like NAFTA or TPP, for example, have challenges. And as a country, we have not done a good job of helping to support our workers as we transition into the next economy. And that's what a lot of this was about. On the other hand, we also know and believe, not just from a Louisiana standpoint, but from a national standpoint, that the fortress economy does not work, that ultimately we need to trade goods, we need to allow flow of people, and that by integrating with the rest of the world, we become stronger. So we're going to be watching that, and we're going to be working with our delegation and working with the White House to help ensure that we have the smart trade policies going forward.
Speaking of the fortress economy, one of the things that I mentioned yesterday on a Facebook Live discussion was that, to me at least, the real issue is the cost of production of product, whether it's Trump shirts, or whether it's say something dealing with e-commerce. I remember meeting with the founder of Yahoo back in 2005 and telling him about the digital media law that, that, as you remember, that I'd really felt very, very close to. And
Yeah.
he said to me in a meeting with the head of economic development for technology in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, Don Hutchinson, he told us, hey, I don't care about these buildings that are bombed out. I can, the cost of production for me in Asia is, astronomically lower. To me, that's the issue. It's, building walls is not going to do it. Your thoughts? I mean, that's my opinion. Yeah.
No, capital is like water. It's going to flow to the easiest place it can flow to. That's what we're seeing, of course, with all of our corporate tax laws and why they have to be rejigged, because all these inversions are occurring because we have some of the highest corporate taxes in the world. And so companies are acting rationally to protect their profits by keeping them overseas. And so I think that's right. I think that if you build a wall, either a legal wall or a physical wall, it'll work for a very short period of time. Nothing, though, over time is going to compensate for training our workers and ensuring that we have some of the best engineers, some of the best skilled workers, some individuals that are ready to compete on a global stage than in the whole world. The stat that I always keep coming back to, Stephen, which I think is inescapable, is that 1/3 of the world's engineers right now are graduating from India. That's how they're creating competitive advantage. And until we really turn our focus onto that generational issue here in New Orleans, in Louisiana, in the country, then everything else we're going to be doing is going to be treating the symptoms, but not the real cause, which has to do with individual competitiveness.
Yeah, I totally. One last question. For those people who are in, say, the 20 to 35-year age, they're looking for opportunities, job opportunities, etc. So what type of advice would you have for them in terms of, education, in terms of future job growth? I mean, obviously make good grades in school, but, I mean, is there an area they really should focus upon? You mentioned India and the engineers. So, let's tell them, okay, hey guys and gals, this is what I think you really ought to consider, at least look at.
Well, I think that educationally it's clear. It's STEM. It's science, it's technology, it's engineering. Anybody that goes into anything in that sphere is going to be fine over time. It's going to be eminently employable here and around the country and around the world. What we're seeing in our own region, according to our research, is that the greatest job growth over the next 10 years is going to be in the energy sector. Interestingly, the second greatest job growth is going to be in water management. It's going to be with deploying the restore funds to stabilize the coast. Because if you think about it, both in energy and in water management, you're actually doing large construction projects, complicated engineering projects, moving vast amounts of materials, a lot of civil engineering and civil construction type work. So lots of growth there. We're also seeing a lot of demand in the knowledge industries, particularly in software, particularly in certain types of codes and languages that people need in order to do their games. And then there's a traditional healthcare is going to boom, not only because we've built a $2 billion UMC and Veterans Administration building and because Oxford is doing so well, but also because of demographics. The population over 65 is going to double by 2050, and that's going to require enhanced healthcare, everything from home services to radically new medical technologies. So a lot of opportunity there as well. But through all of these, and this is coming from somebody who is a sociology and economics major, undergrad, there's no doubt that in terms of general relevance and demand, the STEM areas are going to be the ones that are going to be in the highest demand. But on the other hand, let's just come back to this, and it's what I tell my own kids. It's just two things. It's find what you're passionate in and do it, and stay involved, stay engaged.
This is Fred Herman of Fred Herman Law Firm, and I want to say how happy I am to have brought you this edition of Bayou Buzz TV. If we can help you in the future with any of your business plans, please don't hesitate to call us at the Fred Herman Law Firm. Thank you and have a good evening.